Okay, guys, welcome to podcast number 8. And as always, I'm joined by Craig Seaton. How are you doing, mate?
Good, man.
I think I'm repeating exactly what I said in the previous podcast. So we've just done the breathwork class. It was an interesting class, wasn't it, Craig?
Always is, man.
Yeah, what happened today?
Well, there was only 3 of us in there for a start. Well, 4 of us, including myself. And the coronavirus has got people a little shooken up. Yeah. Especially with the news headline from The Guardian and Sky and BBC. Gyms are a hotspot for illness. But yeah, there's still hardcore breathers coming along. And again, if you're taking care of yourself, your immune system's high and you're looking after yourself in all areas of health, like, if you're going to get it, you're going to get it. I mean, you take sensibility precautions, but I think the mass hysteria and the madness that overtakes people, and like, oh crap, got to buy all the toilet roll, got to get all the gels, and like, it's when we get into that hysterical frame of mind is when things fall apart even more, because we become more selfish, we become more self-preserving for ourselves and our intimates, and then it's like, oh, fuck everything else can go to hell. It's all
about me.
Yeah,
which goes perfectly into the podcast. It's just moving away from that mentality of it's all about me, you know, all for one for all. That kind of culture, it's only held up by the social laws that we have. If you strip those laws away, everything will just go to anarchy. You know, they talk about events where, like stuff like this right now, the virus and major sort of cataclysmic events like earthquakes, etc., solar flares, etc. All it takes is one solar flare to hit the earth, and all the power will be knocked out for like at least 3 months, and then you just see the chaos that will happen. People are very brutal. Have you ever watched The Walking Dead?
Yes.
So the start of The Walking Dead is a prime example. Obviously, it's to a certain extreme with the zombies and stuff, but it's a prime example of what happens when the social construct is broken down, where it can't be maintained. And it's just chaos. And that's what we're seeing right now. We start to really see human nature. So the animalistic instinct kicking in, which is just survival. And people hogging the toilet roll, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, you combine that with group mentality, you know, mob mentality is what people go, oh, string them up, do, you know. Remember the riots, man? I don't know if you were in Manchester at the time of the riots.
No.
I was walking around, I just went to watch like what was going on, and it was mad, you know. And it was, how did it kick off, the riots? Was it in London about student fees or something?
When was this?
Or was it a policeman shot someone? When was it? Maybe 2015, 2016?
I would have been around. I probably just didn't pay attention to the news.
Because it was in London, wasn't it, and Manchester, I think maybe Birmingham, and it was just bizarre, like people are looting and robbing Tesco for beers. I remember seeing lads running past with loads of beers, and just groups ready to like square off with police and just causing chaos because they've been given the green flag by what they see as permission to do that. And it's like, right, there's an opportunity there. Who are you? Which part of yourself are you going to show? I'm going to jump in and do some dickish things because everyone else is, and that's my excuse to blend in, like the anonymity of wearing a mask. You know, you got a mask on, people behave differently because it's not them. They feel immune or invincible or different.
With the same on the internet, where you're almost protected by this
it is trolls, definitely. And like getting stuck into those, like I was talking to a client about it, and she's like, oh, my client was saying we have a right to be hysterical right now. I was like, imagine if the world leaders were hysterical, what would you think and what would you see? Like, you need a calm world leader. You need somebody who's sensible and can see clearly and help give action to sort it out, not somebody who wants to jump in and go, oh, you know, this is going on and that's why ain't anybody da. What are you doing? Like, calm yourself, take care of yourself, protect what you can with yourself and your family, help others if possible, for sure. But be the world leader of your own world, of yourself. Maintain that balance. Otherwise, we will get dragged into the mentality of everybody else. And that's why we have so many issues in society, because, this person does it, or, the government should do the bins, or whatever. Like, we don't take care of yourself and your own doings to the best possible way, then we can't point the finger at other people and expect them to do it for us.
We're lucky that this virus isn't affecting food massively, because if it was affecting food, you just see the mentality when it comes to food. I remember reading a meme the other day, and it said something about, do you know how we in this country, not everyone, but there's a proportion of the population in this country that look down on migrants and immigration and people that are coming in who are asylum seekers, or, you know, the immigrants basically. You're experiencing a tiny bit of friction in the world, and it's causing chaos. Imagine what these people have come from, like the chaos they've come from, where they're getting blown up to bits, and all they're seeking is just a bit of refuge, and we're denying that. Now people are starting to understand what it's like when shit is hitting the fan in our country, and things are not going so well. So I think it also creates a sense of, it should create a sense of compassion in people, and say, okay, obviously I've never experienced that sort of fathom since the Blitz days, right? We weren't alive back then, but since those days in the World War II, we've never really experienced that mass level of just deprivation. But imagine if we were exposed to that level right now, what would you do in that scenario? And yes, right now is a small glimpse of what's gonna come if we ever get back into that scenario. If there's a World War III, this is a small glimpse of what the start of World War III is. It's actually, you've got the chaos of the war that's going to obviously take a lot of lives, but it's before and after the war, the chaos that happens during those two periods. Especially in an environment where we require technology and everything's maintained by technology. We're so dependent on technology that most of us can't even survive if lights went out. You know, how do people react when the lights go out? So yeah, it's a very interesting time, and it just requires what we're talking about, which is conscious awareness and conversations that it's about us, not you or me. You know, no selfish intentions, but just helping other people. Yeah, if you're hogging all the toilet roll, give it out to your neighbours and stuff. And it comes back to, you know, we laugh about it because of how crazy people are, but it's a deep issue. It's a deep, serious issue, especially when it comes down to like food and water. What would you do when you start hogging that? Have you ever watched the movie Rango? Not Django, Rango.
Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp.
Little iguana dude.
Yeah, it's a beautiful movie, and it shows this scenario where, so they don't have currency in the little town that they were living in, because currency doesn't mean anything to them. So these creatures use water as currency, and water is the best currency, because as soon as you start hogging up water and you say, we're only going to ration this water out if you can afford it on this and that, then you've got control of everything. So yeah, it's a crazy scenario to be in, but it's so realistic. That's why it's quite scary for us to watch these all movies and almost like relate to what's happening in the movies, because we try to understand what's happening could happen to us in our modern society.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Like for that movie, do you remember Waterworld? Do you ever watch Waterworld? Kevin Costner. It was like the most expensive film ever made, and it was a big flop, but it was pretty cool as well.
Right.
Anyways, the world was flooded over, and everybody lived in water, similar to the Wind Waker we were talking about before. And they used paper as currency. Like paper was like gold dust, you know,
really?
It was like paper, and it was about this prophecy that someone had drawn on paper. I think that there was an island where water, you didn't have to live on boats or on little bits of land. There was a full land there.
Right.
It was a pretty cool film, to be honest. But yeah, to what were we talking about? Not the currency.
Just the chaos of what would happen in an environment where you are presented with certain limitations, and how society reacts to it.
Yeah, that was it. So what we're saying about that form of water as currency or paper as currency is something that is what we have that we don't have. So that becomes valuable then. That changes the exchange rates, and that's more important. If somebody's got something you want, it means more to you. You'll do more to get it. And look at what that is now, and that's money. Most people are after money, right? For security or status or whatever. We want to buy goods to look a certain way because we will pay 90 quid for a pair of yoga pants, right? And you know, things that look good because they give us a feeling, or they make us think a certain way about ourselves or where we are. But any control or any monopoly that's got the thing that you want, we give ourselves away to it. We lose our power by going, oh yeah, I'll do everything for that. I'll work and pay money to have this commodity or whatever it is. And really, what if we change the values of what is vital, what is important? And the best thing about that is you've already got it. Like your consciousness and your awareness, and how your freedom comes from inside. It's not coming from out of us. What gives you power and strength, it is you. You're alive. It's your energy. It's you. You're a part of life. And for me, at least, to put the power onto that and to give it, because I can feed that every single day. Every practice I want to do throughout the day, I can feed it and continue to grow it, and catch myself when I make a mistake or an error of thought unclearly. It's like, it's never a bad thing. It will just show me more of that economy that I value. And it doesn't, that's when they say, like, you know, Martin Luther King, what was the president of South Africa called? What was his name?
Nelson Mandela.
Nelson Mandela. Yeah, Nelson Mandela. When he was in jail, or that monk in Vietnam who set himself on fire, and all these people who do these quite tough things, their value system is on something greater than what they can be given in the world, and they're ready to sacrifice for it, or develop a certain state of mind to be able to go through, because their values are internal. And in those cases, they wanted to see the change in the world, and they put everything into themselves to hopefully do that, to get that from what they wanted. And like, where are our values going? What are we giving our power away to? And why do we not invest it in ourselves?
So I want to bring it back to another movie that I watched. I don't know if you ever watched The Snowpiercer.
Oh, it's on Netflix now, isn't it?
Yes.
With Chris Evans.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it to anyone. It's very underrated, but it's got a very deep philosophical sort of meaning to the whole movie. So basically, the scenario is there's a train that's going around the world, and everyone else that's outside the train is dead because of the conditions. So there's climate change, and it's caused a massive ice age.
Why are they on a train?
So there's this one sustainable train. So the creator of the train, his name is Wilfred or someone. He's created this train so it's self-sustaining. So by staying in this train, it's warm, it's got shelter, it's got food, etc. And you're living in a society on this train. So it's interesting how human beings have this crazy ability, and I think it's in nature itself as well. Like you see it in primates, where even in dire situations, we will segregate society. So you'll have the guys in the upper rank and the hierarchy almost, and the guys in the lower rank. The lower rank people will be the people with less, objects and materials or possessions, whereas the guys at the top will be the ones that have accumulated most of the wealth. And so this movie starts off where Chris Evans comes from the poor side of the train. So at the back end of the train, you've got the poor people living there. The front of the train, that's where all the rich people live, and the middle class is in the middle. So it was an amazing concept that this one train had almost a depiction of modern day society integrated into it. So as you start at the bottom end of society, they start off at the bottom of the train. They're trying to work their way up, but they're getting pushed back. So there's this war that's happening in between the train sort of passages. And so it starts off with these guys. The types of foods they're consuming is insane as well. And this one day they decided to rebel, and they move forward into the next part. And it's just crazy how you see this life that's created inside of this train, and it's just exactly how society is right now, but it's sustained in this train. And you can put that in other scenarios as well. And the point is, human beings are designed by nature to almost put people in hierarchy straight away. When there's any sort of situation where there's a society growing, or there's a culture growing, we end up like putting each other in brackets and sort of categories. However, we have a conscious choice whether we want to do that or not. Like if you have, like we talked about in the previous podcast, in smaller Native American tribes, or normally like normal smaller tribes around the world, they are self-sustaining and they're egalitarian because they'll have choices made by everyone. There'll be a voting system. They'll decide what decision needs to be made for the entire tribe to move forward. You'll get a couple of elder people who will be the influencers, and they'll be the ones who make the final decision. That works naturally because they've experienced more. They've seen what's happened in the past, and they have more wisdom. Whereas today, the way we elect our presidents, they come out of nowhere, and they promise all these false promises and say, I'll do this and that. And it's just crazy how we fall into this cycle of believing that false promise, and we just think, okay, you should vote for this party. In the UK, you should vote for this party because we feel like this party represents us. But at the end of the day, it's just false expectations. People telling you that you do this for me, and once I get up there, I'll do all this for you. It never happens. Never happens. It's never happened in the history of society. It never will happen. Those leaders that we had back in the days, people like Abraham Lincoln, JFK, these people, they, like you said about Nelson Mandela, they would live by whatever they believed, which was not materialistic, which was grounded in human sort of compassion, to have some sort of compassion towards other people, to create culture where people are treated equally. They have that, and it baffles me how people don't have that naturally in them. Like, how do you not have that? I'm pretty sure every child is born with compassion, without any bias towards anyone in terms of race and stuff, and then somehow we get conditioned from the from the environment we're growing up in, the teachers that we're exposed to, again, like we talked about in 2 podcasts ago, and we become this, some of us, not all of us, but some of us become this really destructive thing, and it's only contained because of society's restrictions. If there were no restrictions, like we said, like the mobs in 2015, people would just do whatever they wanted, just because they don't have the license to do it because of the way society's going. People just won't do it, but as soon as that's gone, they'll do it immediately. So yeah, that's why I feel like stuff like the Snowpiercer, Walking Dead, is a true reflection of what human beings are capable of in the most disgusting way. So we want to create this environment where we're the opposite. You know, we elevate ourselves from that, and we, in a dire situation, we stick together and we stand together. So yeah, I'm fascinated to know any movies that depict that.
Well, one, to say like the opposite, because the opposite is another extreme of that formation. So we've got the anarchy and the chaos on the left, right? And then the right, you've got dictatorship and tyranny. Let's throw another movie in since we're on today. What was it called? Christian Bale. I want to say The Equalizer. Equilibrium. Yeah, have you seen that?
Yeah.
And that's the opposite, man. That's complete control, which is absolute restraint of the human soul, and they're suppressing the emotions, aren't they? It's like take your medicine so you don't have emotions, and then get on with the job. Do your duty. Yeah. Because it's controlled, you know, in the Big Brother manner. What was Orwell's book called? 1980. Yeah. And it's a representation of that. And oh god, that movie, beautiful. When he finds that piece of art, and when he sees it, and he's like, and it just starts moving him, and like when the Nazis were book burning, and they burn out all records and they destroy it all, and it's like, oh fuck, man, you know, this is the opposite side of the random wildness of the apocalypto mindset. So the other side is just as dangerous, and it's always the middle path. How do I balance these two things? How do I chaos and order into construction? And I think what we were briefly talking about before on our own, that even though we have certain traits, we have to sometimes go into them to understand them and to feel them, and to know what they are, to come out the other side and go, okay, I was in that, I got lost in it, now I understand it, so I can take it and I can use it to build up a certain way. And I don't think we have to indulge into everything. Like if we've got consciousness awareness, or we've seen somebody go through the motions before, or Sadhguru says, like, when he's discussing consciousness and evolution, and why not talk to somebody who's done it?
Exactly.
You might be walking around blind, and you only want to get to the room next to you, but it's all dark, so you might do a whole lap of the world and you still might never find it. But if you talk to someone who knows the path, they can help open it up.
We mentioned this in the previous podcast, I can't remember which one it was, but we said there are 2 types of human beings on this planet, and you'll be both of those types of human beings. So you have the one where you learn through experience, your own experience. So if someone says to you, psychedelics are bad, unless you've tried them yourself, you don't make a decision. And then you got the second group of people which learn through other people's experiences. So best example is, if I touch fire and I realize, ouch, that hurts, you see my reaction and think, no thank you. I get what the reaction is. So it's balancing those two sides out, choosing which things you want to do in life where you will not be dictated by what other people say to you. Like, obviously in a scenario where you see someone drowning, or you touch fire and it burns you, you'll be like, okay, I actually don't want to involve myself in that. You see the reaction from it. But then there are times where you have to experience it. So it's the same as like, certain, like obesity. I think some people need to go through that to realize that, okay, that path isn't for me. My cousin, I was catching up with yesterday, we were talking about, so he's got a health problem at the moment, and he had that health problem because of accumulation of many factors. One of them was obesity. Like, he was pretty big when he was younger. So we were talking about it, I think it was when he was 10 to 14. So 4 years of his life, he was quite chubby. He was eating like 7 packets of crisps a day. On top of that, chocolate, Coke, all the junk food that we've grown up with. And he was obese, and now his body is paying for it. But he's well aware of what's caused it. So he's on a path of just eating right at the moment, just keep making sure his diet is clean. Yeah, on the odd occasion, go for pancakes like we did last night, or waffles, but then not to indulge. I think that's what the key is. And most of our advertisement is based on indulgence, whether it's through sex, through food, through just general pleasures. It's all about indulgence. So if someone gives you an item, they tell you that you should indulge yourself in that and then obviously consume more from that. It's a typical way of marketing things. You want people to be attracted to it, enjoy it, and then they're hooked on, and they're having, like heroin. You get hooked on, the drug dealer gives it for you for free, you try it out, and you think, God, I want some more. He'll give you the next one for free, and you'll enjoy it, and then after that, once you're hooked, then they'll milk you. So it's understanding that. I think it's also catching yourself out doing that. So we can get into, it's our natural instinct to do things that are based on pattern. Yeah, we want things to be repetitive and pattern based, but then it's realizing that, is it having a detrimental effect on me? If it is, then just catch yourself out doing it, you know?
Yeah, and those two types of learning are really important, and seeing, because we all have different characteristics as well. So how do I learn? Do I learn better if I'm watching, or if I'm being taught, if I read the material, or do physically doing it? Like, how do we learn? And to apply that to the best way for us to experience. I'm quite good at listening, but there's a massive part of me that wants to feel it and wants to know it, because that's true experience in my eyes. Knowledge is one thing, but unless knowledge has turned into experience, it can't be wisdom. Yeah. It's just reading somebody else's words, or I've watched you touch the fire, seen your reaction, go, wonder what that feels like.
Yeah.
Just, little finger. You know what I mean? Rather than putting my whole hand in, so you learn from it. When it's different. There's also curiosity killed the cat, but I'd much rather be curious
100%.
Than be a lemon, you know, and just stood there and not experience anything. And because I've done that, just reading, knowledge, boom, 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 great. I learned a hell of a lot, and I can apply that now. But there was no feeling involved in those years or in those times to taste what life is, because life is happening. It's not knowledge. Life is life. It's alive, and you can only feel that when we're experiencing, not when we're trying to dissect it all with the mind. Yeah,
when we try and understand it so the mind can process it. Because we know there are many phenomena that happen that we just can't understand or process. The human mind is just not capable at the moment to understand it, or we don't have the language or the technology to understand it in a certain way. So yeah, it's going beyond that. So yeah, I think all the mindfulness does come into that category as well. Like your experience of mindfulness will be different to mine. And it's us sharing the ideas, but then also saying that, you should try it out, but I don't want you to, like you said, dip your toes in it, but then realize that if it's not serving me, then pull away. Yeah,
I mean, what are you looking for? Why do you want to do these things? Why do you want to find out, okay, well, this guy, I want to understand consciousness and heighten my energy levels and have a deeper frequency. How do I do that? Well, this yogi who's done it says meditate, bang, bang, bang. This guy who does it says semen retention, save your sexual energy. This guy who does it says exercise your body, get your body clean. This person says eat this certain foods. All right, I'll try them all, and I'll see. And a fair trial, I'll do anything for at least 3 to 5 weeks. More so if I'm quite passionate about it, and I would go into it, and yeah, that worked. Pineal gland cleanse, which I'm gonna start next week. I did that last year for 30 days. Loads of different supplements that you take every single day, and I'd never done it before. I'd fasted before and had great experiences. I thought I'd try this cleanse, and incredible. Like somebody could have said, oh, you'll have clearer dreams, or you'll feel different in your energy. Like, yeah, that sounds good. But what that actually felt like and what it was, unparalleled to what the words would say, And this is, I think, with genuine expression, if you talk to somebody on that path, because we were saying before how wherever you are in your own spiritual development or your own personal growth, to not push that onto people, but to talk about your experience openly and say, oh, well, I got this from it. Maybe you could try it that way if you're interested, or here's the beginner level, here's intermediate. And that person goes, yeah, okay, it sounds for me. Or goes, oh, no, like psychedelics an easy one. People are like, no, not for me. But I like meditation. Okay, maybe if you stay on your meditational journey or breath work, you find that those psychedelics might come into your life. Or like it was for me, the other way around, the psychedelics and doing all that took me into the breathwork and the shamanistic route, which that's all I require currently at the moment. I don't need anything external from that. Yeah. So there's the learnings for who you are, and not to be disgruntled or upset that you don't do it a certain way, or that person doesn't follow the way that we do it. Because that's what's cool about life. Everybody's the individual, and that person's learning that way. Yeah. And when somebody has matured to that point where they can be doing the same thing or doing the opposite things, but still have a good conversation, go, oh, that's cool, you do it that way, or oh, you don't do it, why aren't you interested in it? Fair play. Because we see everything as it's that person's doing that person, and that's all right. Like, how can you have confrontation then when you're accepting how that person is? You won't have anger then when you accept it, you know?
Yeah, 100%. So, linking to what you just said, I think most people's fear comes from this idea that if a large group of people, like an experiment, a large group of people haven't done it and it's not been successful, I won't try it out. Do you understand? If you say, this is what you experienced through your psychedelic experience, but I say to you, when I tried, weed out or something, and I didn't have a really good experience, and you're telling me to try something stronger out, I'm just like, actually, do I really want to enter those realms? Or it's the other person that just doesn't want to try anything out, and that's fine. But then it's very difficult to break into that shell and say to them, look, you look on the internet, most of the people will say this is their reaction and this is what happened. But for me, this was my experience of what I did here. So for you to just turn around, it's like when again, going back to the movies, how many people go on the internet, look at the reviews, then watch the movie, as opposed to like watching the movie, making the decision themselves, then maybe looking at the reviews and thinking, okay, what did other people think about it? It's because you're already allowing yourself, and most people do it, like I'm guilty of doing this as well. You do it unconsciously without even realizing it. You're on there on your phone, just check the movie out, look at the review, and then you think, oh, is it worth my time to watch it? Instead of back in the olden days where you didn't have that ability.
Mate, I tell you what, well, two things. I want to come back to what you said about psychedelics, but just that on the movies there, I love and have a yearning for when you would go to the cinema. I always remember the Terminator 2 trailer. You know, the music was on and then this fire was rising, and Terminator 2 Judgment Day came through in steel, and that was the trailer, that was it, that was all we got, and I was like, fuck, I'm gonna go and see that, man. Like the music kicked in and how it looked, I was like, I'm in. And I think we're kind of coming out that period now where movie trailers have stopped showing so much, because they were smashing it the last 3 to 5 years has been, here's the whole film, you can put it together because of the best action scenes, you can even put the twist together, and it's like,
I don't want to watch it anymore.
That came back to the instant gratification, the Instagram generation. We want everything immediate now. The dating apps, the food delivery. Like, if we don't get a hold of how to use this stuff correctly, like we're losing so much, and you know it just ties into how instant we want things without. We want to know. And movie reviews, for example, like if I'm gonna go see a film, or if I love the director and I trust the actors as well, either of those two, I'll see a film.
Right.
Like, if Joaquin Phoenix is in a movie, I'll go and see it. And there's certain actors I'll watch it
like
because
DiCaprio
it's them.
as well.
DiCaprio, great films, and directors.
Nolan.
Christopher Nolan, Terrence Malick. What was the guy called who did the Fountain? I always forget his name.
Oh God.
But yeah, certain philosophical movies, like these directors, I'm in. I don't need to read a review, and I wouldn't even watch the trailer. I might watch it to like hype myself up a little bit, but I wouldn't need to, because if I know I'm going to see the film, I don't want to watch anything on it. It's like, because I trust in it, and you get so much more from the experience then. And maybe we're at a state where we struggle to do that now. You know, we've always got music on as we're walking around, we've always got the TV on in the background, we're always being stimulated, so we don't trust in things so much, when really you'll get much more out of that. Like with meditation in the mind, you step away from what you think you know, so your only way you're entering presence and you're entering quantum realms, because you're not predicting anything, you're letting life unfold, rather than, oh well, that's going to happen over there and that's going to happen with that. Well, you're not living, you're going off robotic
impulses almost.
It's the mind working too much.
I think, like, just looking at your watch as well, the dependence on these gadgets to tell us how many calories we should be burning every day, how many steps we should be walking. I'm just like, people did this for thousands of years intuitively. You know, you don't need to attach a figure on it. And you know, I was obsessed with that when I used to count my macros when I was training. I'm just like, it's not a natural way of living just to live like that. The natural way to live is to eat something and say, is it working with me or is it working against me? If it's working against you, stop eating it. Stop indulging in stuff that your body is not enjoying, and try and figure out what it is that's causing the problem. And like you said, we're living in a society where it's more robotic. Everything's just there for us, instant gratification. And relating to what we just said about movies, sport is the biggest example. Look at all the sport these days. It's just, the best example I can give you is cricket. Like, cricket has 3 different formats. It has Test cricket, which is the longest, the ones where they wear white clothes, and it lasts for 5 days. So 5 days, 8 hours a day, you're watching this. And people think, why do you want to watch this? And for me, it's like, you don't get it. Like, there's a series right now on Amazon Prime called The Test, which talks about Australia's journey for the last 18 months. So Australia once was the best team in the world for a long period of time. And then they had a resurgence, and all the old people, all players retired, and now they're building up the team again. And they've gone from being really poor, like losing 21 games out of 30 games. They lost 21 series, actually, not just 21 games, but 21 series they lost. And then they've got this resurgence where the new players have come in, they've lost a few more series, and then they've built up. Now these days people want instant gratification. That's why T20 cricket was created. So it's finished in 3 hours, and you see high flying shots.
When did they create that?
2004 was the first T20 game.
Really,
but it's evolved. It's evolved so much from back then, because people weren't playing, they didn't understand the game properly. So now it's turned into this high flying game, and it's great. But now, like, people my generation now are longing for the Test cricket, which is weird, because back then Test cricket was good, but it didn't interest me in a massive way. I was more into like one day cricket, which was the gap between Test and T20. And now I'm just like fascinated by Test cricket again, because of how it's the mental battle between bat and ball, how difficult it is to fight, to kind of play in those conditions and play against those bowlers or those batsmen. It's just a mental test, and most people just don't want that. They would rather just get a quick result, go home, celebrate, and then move on to the next game. Whereas this, for 5 days you could be playing and it could go to a draw. So most Test matches end up in a draw, so there's no result. But what you don't see in that, so the people that don't know anything about cricket, is the hard struggle. The fact that you're maybe playing in Perth, Australia, where it's, God knows, like 50 degrees, and you're doing that for 8 hours, 5 days straight. The pitch is deteriorating, the bowlers are getting exhausted, the batsmen are getting smacked around, with the bowlers. So I just think we don't have patience anymore. We just want instant gratification. But like you said, we're moving towards that other realm now, where on YouTube, most of the highest rated videos are long format videos.
Oh,
so podcasts,
It got real short, didn't it? Everything was about short and sweet.
And now people want they've realised that people want long format videos, so podcasts became a huge thing.
Well, this maybe is always going to be, because it's the pendulum effect, right? The left side, the right side, the pendulums always go, I want this, no, I want the opposite, no, I want that, no, and then boom, 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 it slows down and balances, and we can help that process along. Which I'll just quickly come back to what you said about the psychedelics experience you had trying weed, and it sent you into that uncomfortable sort of paranoid state. And then the next option you've got is, well, why would I do that again or try something stronger? Now you've got to take into account variables, right? So where did you do it? Who did you do it with?
Yeah.
How much did you take? Like, all that stuff adds into what your experience is going to be. I remember first going into trying mushrooms after going through meditation. It opened the whole world up to me. I've said this before. And then going, right, well, I'll look into that, because it's caught up and for some reason it's grabbed my attention. I'd never, I used to smoke a lot of weed, but I was never into anything that would alter your mind as such, even though that does in a way. Until I got into the meditation and was looking for it for growth and understanding. And I'd listen to people's stories. Oh, you can try these psychedelics. Yeah, I did them when I went to Amsterdam with mates, and we did a stag do, we got pissed up and we'd take cocaine, and like, no wonder you were seeing nasty shit and things that you were and triggering anxiety and fear, because we don't that kind of mentality doesn't appreciate or understand what they're actually opening up. You're opening up doors within yourself. You're accessing deeper states of consciousness. Don't you want to do that from a pure and cleansed place, rather than when you're walking around going into bars, dodgy looking people, loud music, you get lost? Like, you're asking for anxiety, you're asking for bad spells if you're doing it that way. So there's always, where are we doing these things in any experience, even with meditation? I tried meditation, it didn't work. Well, maybe if you were sat somewhere where it was too quiet and it was with a load of older people, and you went to the place it wasn't right for you, while if you went to maybe a more modern place that's taking it without, say, tradition of sorts, or a different kind of commune, or it's done with music, like, maybe you'll find meditation that way. So there's always, I think, to make that judgment on the first time. And we see this a lot with breathwork too, right? Is the people who come in, and almost all the new people, every time, stiff as a board, lying down, like, what is going on? Why are people making noises? What am I feeling? And there's resilience there because it's new. But if we stop at the first hurdle we will never, and this is why it's not a fair test of anything. 3 weeks, do anything at least 3 to 5 times, unless it's extremely detrimental, or try it for 3 to 5 weeks. Be the scientist, neutral, not looking for a specific outcome, just to observe. You know, and recognize the feelings that we have that are going on when we're trying that new thing, but we can't say, right, yeah, I've done that, it's not for me now. Because if we're doing that, we're just looking to gain, and not gain in the sense of achievements or accomplishments, or I've done ba 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 ba, rather. And you see that a lot with medicine circles, actually, with the ayahuasca or mushrooms or iboga, people who do it, but not to do the growth and the work outside of those things.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I feel like a lot of people go in there with the attachment towards the experience they go through. So, you know, for example, with breathwork, all the tingly sensations, all the visual stuff that you see, people go in there with that attachment. When you do something, when you do a practice that and you're attached to the experience of the practice, that's when you start having problems, because you got to understand, each time you do it, you might not have the same outcome. Yeah, that experience is letting you go into that state, but that experience isn't the actual state. You know, we define the state as the experience itself, and it's separating the two. I remember reading Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, and he says that, he goes, there are many different kinds of meditation, and they all take you to the same path, but the problem is people get too attached to the experience of it. So there's one where you focus on the senses, so you focus on your nose, and within a certain period of time you start smelling really nice smells, but then you think that is the process of meditation. You think this is liberation, this is what it's supposed to be. No, that's your way of entering the gateway. It isn't the actual the place you want to get to, it's just the gateway. And as soon as people do that, you've already closed yourself up to the rest of the room. So it's like being in a dark room and shining your torch, being scared of shining your torch because you don't know what's around you, or you're in a dark cave, and you shine your torch in one direction and think, oh, actually it's fine, there's nothing there, it's nothing scary. And then you realize, actually I can see like shining diamonds and all this kind of stuff, and you think, oh, that's really cool. But now you feel like, oh god, now I don't want to switch it to something else in case there's something there. So it's doing the same thing and applying it to your mind, and you can create all sorts of scenarios for your mind.
Mate, that's such a good thing to say, because it just highlights when our attachments come to things and when we've found something good. Like that cave analogy is brilliant. You know Plato's allegory of the cave?
No.
Mate, it's great. Right. I'll send you a little video on it later.
Okay.
It's basically about people they've grown up in a cave. I'll try and do it justice if I can explain it correctly. There's 3 people chained up in a cave, and they have to face a wall, and they're grown up from babies there, their feet are chained, all they've ever known is this cave.
Oh, you told me about this.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So there's a fire that's burning behind them all the time. There's people who come in and they burn the fire, and all they ever see on the wall, because they can't see behind them, is the shadows of what's walking past the cave and what's going on.
Right.
So their whole life is built off what's reflected on the cave wall. And then one day, somebody at night like frees one of the cave guys, or he breaks free, and he like wakes up and he wanders around and he goes outside and he sees the sun for the first time, and he sees the clouds, and he sees flowers and animals, and he's like, imagine that, you know. I think there's a tribe, somebody told me once, that keep their kids inside for like 9 years and then let them out, and imagine the beauty and the wonder and the awe that you'd be infused with to see all that colour and all that life. Fuck. Whew. It would overtake you, wouldn't it? Be overwhelming. Anyway, this guy's out there, and then he comes back and he's like trying to tell the other guys, like, I've been outside, because he goes back in and somehow I think he's chained back up or whatever, or he's just trying to explain to them, he's like, I've been out there, everything we're seeing on these shadows, like, you know, the figures walking past of animals or sticks blowing or whatever, he said, that's nothing, that's an illusion, that's just the shallow end of what the hell is out there. And they think he's mad and beat him up. And this is what we're doing all the time with our realities of being stuck in Maya and the Matrix, the illusion. The allegory of the cave is actually the Matrix is a modern day uptake of that. You know, we're stuck in the illusion and seeing the things, and then you challenge me. Well, no, I'm not believing that, and I won't let you disrupt my reality by telling me that that's the truth.
Yeah. That's the same as the when we went to that bookstore and I told you about Attack on Titan, Shingeki no Kyojin. So the same concept, humanity's confined to these 3 walls. There's a hierarchy system where the middle wall is got the rich people, the next one's got the middle class, and the final wall has got the poor people. So when there's an attack from these large humanoid sort of man-eating, they're almost like zombies, drunken zombies, but they're terrifying because they look like human beings, completely like human beings, and they just eat flesh. When they attack and come in, it's like those people are so scared of going beyond the wall to find out if there's a life beyond the wall. And it's we're having all these stories and narratives said, having the deeper meaning, it's the same deeper meaning, but said in a different way, and it's all pointing to the same direction, which is to experience life beyond your restrictions of what you've been told what life is. So it's going beyond that. Give me 1 second and just make sure these cameras are recording. Sorry about that.
You're going off what you're saying there about Attack of the Titan or Snowpiercer or whatever. That one's really good, that nobody will then go outside of their borders because you've got fear incited to not go beyond those borders, which is what we always have. Like, whoever's listening right now, you've got borders of fear that we're afraid to go past, and that's why we stay within the bubble and the life that we know. The Wizard of Oz, don't look beyond the curtain, don't pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Like, see, because you'll see through the illusion, and this is what governments do, this is what friends and family do, it's what we do. It's not like a massive conspiracy, it's how we see life. And one thing, getting into the spiritual way of being and meditation and breath work and experiencing psychedelics, things like that will shatter your borders because you're going beyond the limited mind of experience and fear and control to what is out there. Like, if you were to just go floating in space, like, what is out, what we're going to find, what's going to happen, who knows? And one thing to tip on what you were saying before, when we get stuck on that, like with breathwork, where you can't expect what's going to happen, or the limits of we want to stay there. And I think sex is such a good example of that. Because being into the tantra practice and the retention practice is a far cry from what can be experienced on the surface level of sex, because that's all we know, that's all we've been taught, growing up. And with that information not being out there, we're still stuck in these walls and don't go out there because the fear is we're going to be attacked by these things in that movie, in the Attack of the Titans. In this case, it's like, well, that's all there is. So if we don't know there's more out there, we're never going to uncover, or it's going to be a slow, long way to get there. Or that person who has been out there and comes back is like, who's this guy? And then we beat up the guy in the cave story, or the cave. Lord of the Rings, the hobbits go off on their adventure, and they're gone out of this little countryside, the Shire, and they're off seeing like the elephants or climbing mountains, fighting dragons, and they come back and it's like everyone's just carrying on as normal, and these guys are coming back with all this experience and this wealth of growth of life, which we can all do if that's our path. And I think the majority of people have that spark that we want to go from. We're just so conditioned by the fears, by not fitting in, or by what's going to happen if we do it. But that's where we find real life, real experience, growth, development. Yeah,
I think tying in with what you just said, so Sadhguru says that having intelligence and having a brain that's obviously a lot bigger than our body, it creates an environment where it becomes our own enemy, our own worst enemy, where people that have half of their brain removed or in a coma look more peaceful than people that you see in the modern day. And it's because you look at the person and you just think, oh, that guy looks like he's out of it. And you look at the person's face and would you rather be completely out of it or let that mind keep talking to you and put all these fears in place? And for most people, if they had a choice, it goes back to that experiment where they had human beings, they had rats in this cage, and there was a shock therapy experiment to see if a rat was willing to, because it had nothing to do, it was pretty much bored, where they would push his button, and he would, every so often, he would just push his button to get a shock, and he would rather get shocked than just sit there in his own space and just mind his own business. He would just go up to the button and press it again, because once in a while he just needed to be jabbed. And I feel like we're doing that right now. We're just living in an environment where sometimes we need these adversities, because life has adversities integrated in them and also pleasures. So sometimes we need these adversities just to say, look, prick, you're a human being, you're alive, do something with it. It's fascinating how we'll be in that rat, we'll be that same rat where we go up to this thing and we know it's not good for us, and we're just going to press it and we'll suffer it, understand that, okay, shit's not good for me, and then do it again. Like a few days later, to press it again. And it just shows you how we're conditioned to just kind of to seek more. But then when you're restricted in a certain environment, you'll do anything just to seek something different.
Man, that's great. Like, that rat's in the cage, so he's finding, well, bollocks to it, I might as well electrocute myself. What are we doing as humans who are not in a cage? The only cage we're having is a conditioning of the mind, you know? And you'll get out of that cage and there's a bigger cage, continues on. But we're in a cage. Only when we accept that and realise that, what am I limited by? Your cage walls are the fears, our cage walls are anxieties, our cage walls are judgments and the things that we're against. Let's take down those walls, because you can take them down yourself, right? We can all take them down brick by brick if we want, and go outside. And then we've got more space, rather than my cage is so low and so tight that I'm going to punish myself because at least it's something. So I'm just going to eat junk food, or I'm just going to sit and watch TV and do nothing else. And again, there's times and place for all these things. I'm not saying don't do them. I'm not saying that, because I do it. There's a time and place. But don't be trapped by a small cage, because it's from the mind that we are. Reach out, break the walls, break the barriers, and find the people who can help you do that. Find the things that inspire you to want to do that, and your life will just grow. Or it'll stay the same.
It's a great place to wrap up, but I just want to say one thing. It's in that environment where you surround yourself with those people. You have to be the person that says, okay, I'm with these same group of people all the time, every day. Let me go and explore horizons with other people. Let me go and talk to some people that are not obviously from my sort of background or my culture, etc. It's just going out there and talking to these people. And again, this can go into its own different topic. It's something I talked to a friend about last week in the gym, the Native American lad that I met. I said to him, these days, the way I dress is exactly the way you dress, even though we come from two completely different cultures and two completely different histories. Do you find it interesting how where you don't even have to travel anymore, because what you're experiencing here is exactly what's on the other side of the world if you're choosing to explore the cities and the sort of the areas that have the same environment as we have here. Because you'll find a McDonald's here, you'll find a KFC. Go on the other side of the world, Thailand is something, you'll find KFC, you'll find McDonald's. And people, for some reason, and they won't know unless you consciously pay attention to it, you'll end up in those same environments. You'll just go to those same places. Oh, let me go find a McDonald's. First day I land in Thailand, let me go find a McDonald's. Oh, let me go find a KFC, or etc. I think that is the problem. I think what you need to do is stop doing what other people are doing, plus stop doing what you're doing here right now, and taking it with you to another place. When you're in another place with another environment of people, understand that it's a fresh start. You don't have those social constructs programming the way their reaction is going to be towards you, so they don't know who you are as a human being. So you can be a completely different person. You can actually be you and figure out who you are. And I think it's through exposure, through different cultures, different people, different environments, you piece together who you really are, who you want to be as well. So
yeah, man, new experiences, new emotions, new feelings, new life, new you.
Yeah,
every moment fresh.
Yeah, 100%. Right, I think we're going to wrap it here. It's a pretty decent podcast, 48 minutes.
Good time, man.
Yeah, the last couple
plans
of them
today either. No topic.
No topic at all. Yeah, we just went with the flow. It started off from Corona and it manifested in this massive conversation.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, so this was podcast 8. Again, guys, we're trying to sort Spotify out. I think we need to talk to our friend Alex. I think he will probably give us some pointers.
We'll get there.
Yeah, well, there's no problem. As long as you guys enjoy seeing our faces, or lack of faces, because the cameras keep going off all the time. That's definitely not intentional. It just happens. So yeah, we'll see you guys on the next podcast.
Will do.
Right, perfect.